A Vought convoy transporting Compound V through a quiet industrial highway never reaches the city when the lead armored truck flips sideways, as if struck by something that never appears on camera. Soldiers spill out shouting commands while Supes escorting the shipment rush forward, expecting an ambush they can overpower. Instead, they see a massive bald man walking calmly through the smoke with chains wrapped around his forearms, and an axe resting across his shoulder. Like this is an inconvenience, not a battlefield. One Supe charges him at full speed and is swatted aside so hard his body skips across the asphalt like thrown debris. Bullets slam into the stranger's skin and fall uselessly to the ground while he keeps walking toward the convoy without changing pace. A second Supe tries to grab him from behind and is lifted by the throat with one hand and hurled through the windshield of the flipped truck. He does not shout. He does not rush. He simply walks forward and looks at the vials of Compound V like he recognizes something he hates. And miles away in Vought Tower, someone just felt a presence that does not belong to this world. Stay with this story, because what happens next is not a fight you can measure. If you don't subscribe, you'll miss the moment this world realizes it invited a god killer into its system, and the consequences have already begun spreading. The overturned convoy burns quietly on the side of the highway, while soldiers scramble to reestablish control over a situation they do not understand. Radios crackle with confused reports about a single hostile individual who walked through automatic gunfire without flinching and dismantled two Supes without appearing to try. Smoke drifts across the asphalt as emergency lights flash against twisted metal and shattered glass. In the middle of the wreckage stands Kratos, broad and unmoving, staring at a shattered crate of Compound V vials spilled across the road. His expression is not rage, it is recognition. The kind of recognition that comes from seeing something that reminds him too much of gods who treated mortals like tools. One soldier, shaking but determined, raises a rifle and fires again. The bullets strike Kratos' skin and drop harmlessly to the ground. Kratos turns his head slightly toward the sound, and the soldier freezes in place, as if realizing too late that this is not someone he should have provoked. Kratos walks past him without speaking. Inside Vought International, analysts receive the first live reports and immediately assume this is a rogue Supe interfering with a classified transport. They pull up traffic cameras along the highway, expecting to track the approach of a known hero or villain. They find nothing. There is no footage of Kratos arriving. One moment the road is empty, and the next, the convoy is flipping sideways as if hit by an invisible force. The first frame where he appears shows him already walking through smoke. Several floors above, Homelander watches the footage alone. He rewinds the moment where a Supe charges the stranger and gets thrown aside like scrap metal. His eyes narrow slightly as he studies the man's posture. This is not panic. This is not aggression. This is calm. Across the city, Billy Butcher hears chatter through a contact and turns up the volume on a news report showing blurry helicopter footage of the burning convoy. Butcher leans closer to the screen as the camera catches a glimpse of Kratos walking away from the wreckage with deliberate, heavy steps. "That's not a Supe," Butcher mutters. Back on the highway, Kratos kneels beside the shattered vials. He picks one up and examines the glowing liquid inside. His grip tightens slightly, and the glass cracks in his hand without him trying. The liquid spills onto the asphalt and sizzles faintly. He looks at the wounded Supes scattered around him, listening to them groan in pain and confusion. He studies their suits, their insignias, the way soldiers treat them with fearful respect. This world has false gods. That conclusion settles in his mind, quietly and completely. A helicopter circles overhead, spotlight cutting through smoke as soldiers shout for backup. Kratos stands slowly, placing the broken vial back on the ground as if the decision has already been made. He starts walking toward the city. Inside Vought Tower, executives begin preparing a response team. Orders are given to track, contain, and identify the threat before the media frames the narrative. They still believe this is a Supe acting outside of Vaught's control. Homelander watches silently, saying nothing, but his eyes never leave the screen. Something about the way this man moves does not match anything he has seen before. Across town, Butcher watches the same footage replayed on television. He sees Kratos walking through gunfire without reacting and feels a chill he cannot explain. "That's a problem," Butcher says quietly. On the highway, soldiers finally muster the courage to approach Kratos from behind, shouting commands for him to stop. One fires a taser that sparks uselessly against his back. Kratos turns his head slightly, and the soldiers hesitate, realizing they are trying to control something that does not recognize their authority. Kratos continues walking without acknowledging them. Behind him, the convoy burns and Compound V leaks into the road, but the real damage is already done. Someone who does not belong to this world has seen how it treats power, and he is walking toward the center of it. News helicopters follow the lone figure walking along the highway toward Manhattan, broadcasting shaky footage of a bald, heavily scarred man moving with the calm of someone who has never had to hurry in his life. Commentators struggle to identify him, cycling through known Supes, foreign operatives, and experimental assets that might have gone rogue. Inside Vought International, the tone hardens from confusion to containment. Executives authorize a rapid response team made up of experienced Supes who have handled rogue threats before. The assumption is simple and dangerously wrong. This is someone powerful, but still within the category of something Vought understands. Several floors above, Homelander watches the deployment without speaking. He studies the man's walking pace and notices something unsettling. The stranger is not trying to evade cameras or pursuit. He is moving openly, as if he knows nothing sent against him will matter. Across town, Billy Butcher watches the same live broadcast with Huey. Butcher's expression shifts from curiosity to something closer to concern. "They're sending Supes?" Huey asks. Butcher nods slowly. "They're about to waste them." The response team intercepts Kratos at an overpass leading into the city. 3 Supes land in front of him, blocking the road with forced confidence. One hovers in the air above, arms glowing with energy. Another cracks his knuckles loudly, trying to intimidate a man who does not slow his pace. Kratos stops several steps away and looks at them without speaking. His eyes are steady, assessing, like a general deciding whether a fight is worth the effort. The first Supe attacks without warning, launching forward at full speed. Kratos steps slightly to the side and grabs him mid-charge by the arm. The momentum stops instantly. The Supe's shoulder tears out of socket as Kratos pivots and slams him into the pavement hard enough to crack concrete. The second Supe fires a concentrated energy blast at Kratos' chest. The blast hits, explodes outward and leaves nothing but smoke. When the air clears, Kratos is still standing in the same position, unharmed, staring directly at the attacker. He throws the Leviathan axe once. The axe whistles through the air and strikes the Supe in the torso with such force that his body lifts off the ground and pins against the side of a truck behind him. The impact caves metal inward as the Supe goes limp instantly. The third Supe hesitates, realizing too late that this is not a fight he understands. He tries to retreat upward into the air. Kratos extends one hand calmly, and the returning axe slams back into his palm. He hurls it again with terrifying precision. The axe strikes the airborne Supe mid-flight and drags him down into the asphalt below in a violent explosion of debris. News helicopters capture everything in real time. Inside Vought Tower, analysts stare in stunned silence as 3 of their strongest responders are dismantled in less than 30 seconds. Executives begin shouting for more assets, refusing to accept what they are seeing. Homelander leans closer to the screen, his jaw tightening. He is not watching someone fight. He is watching someone who does not consider this a fight at all. Across town, Butcher watches the footage replay and exhales slowly. He didn't even try, he says. On the overpass, Kratos walks past the unconscious and broken Supes without looking back. He retrieves his axe from the asphalt and continues toward the city, moving with the same calm pace as before. Military vehicles arrive seconds later, surrounding the scene with sirens and weapons raised. Soldiers shout commands, but Kratos does not acknowledge them. He walks through the barricade, forcing vehicles aside with his body as if they are obstacles, not defenses. Inside Vought, executives begin realizing something they do not want to admit. This man is not escalating. He is simply advancing. And nothing they send slows him down. By the time Kratos reaches the outer streets of Manhattan, the footage of the overpass fight has already saturated every screen in the country. News channels replay the moment he stopped a full-speed Supe with one hand and buried another into asphalt like it was routine. Commentators struggle to describe what they are seeing because nothing about it resembles the way Supes fight. Inside Vought International, executives argue loudly over response strategies that no longer make sense. The usual playbook of overwhelming force, media control, and rapid containment feels useless against someone who walks through every defense without changing pace. Several floors above, Homelander watches Kratos enter the city streets with quiet focus. He notices the detail no one else is mentioning. The stranger is not attacking civilians, not damaging buildings, not acting randomly. He is moving with purpose, like he is searching for something specific. Across town, Billy Butcher stands by a window overlooking the street, watching police and military vehicles race past below. Huey stands beside him, visibly anxious. "We should do something," Huey says. Butcher shakes his head slowly. "No, we should watch." Huey frowns. "Watch what?" Butcher keeps his eyes on the road. What he decides. In the middle of a busy avenue, traffic comes to a halt as Kratos walks between cars without acknowledging the panic around him. People scramble out of vehicles, filming him on phones, unsure whether to run or stare. He ignores them all, eyes scanning buildings and billboards that display smiling Supes as corporate heroes. His gaze lingers on a massive Vought advertisement showing children receiving compound V injections, with hopeful parents smiling beside them. His jaw tightens slightly. A pair of Vought security Supes arrive on the scene, landing hard in front of him. They shout warnings and try to assert control over the crowd, positioning themselves between Kratos and the street ahead. Kratos stops and looks at them in silence. One Supe lunges forward with a punch strong enough to shatter concrete. Kratos catches his wrist effortlessly and twists. The bone snaps with a dry crack, and the Supe screams as Kratos shoves him aside like an inconvenience. The second Supe tries to tackle him from behind. Kratos doesn't turn. He simply steps forward and backhands him across the street with such force that the Supe smashes through a parked taxi and into a storefront window. Civilians scream and scatter as glass rains onto the sidewalk. Kratos does not chase either of them. He resumes walking, eyes lifting toward the skyline where Vought Tower rises above the city. Inside the tower, executives watch this unfold and begin to understand something that chills them more than the violence. He is not fighting their Supes. He is moving past them. Homelander notices the same thing. He leans back slightly, realizing that this man is not interested in proving strength. He is heading somewhere. Across town, Butcher exhales slowly as he watches the footage. He's not hunting Supes, he says. He's hunting the people who made them. Huey looks at him. "You think he knows about Vought?" Butcher nods. "I think he knows enough." On the street, Kratos pauses briefly in front of a large Vought facility where children are escorted inside by handlers. He watches them for a long moment, his expression hardening in a way that suggests memory, not confusion. He looks at the armed guards at the entrance, then at the Vought logo above the doors. Something in his posture changes. Not faster, not louder. Heavier. He turns away from the facility and resumes walking toward the center of the city, but the decision has clearly been made. Inside Vought Tower, panic spreads quietly as executives begin connecting the same dots. The convoy, the Supes, the facility, the direction he is heading. Homelander stands up slowly from his seat, eyes fixed on the live feed. For the first time since this began, he feels a sense of anticipation rather than confusion. Because he realizes this stranger is not wandering. He is approaching. By late afternoon, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. News helicopters track Kratos from above as he moves through Manhattan with the same slow, unstoppable pace, and people begin noticing that every street he chooses brings him closer to one place. Vought Tower. Reporters start mentioning it cautiously on air, pointing out maps that show his path narrowing toward the corporate center of the Supe world. What began as a chaotic incident on a highway now feels like a deliberate march with a destination. Inside Vought International, executives stop arguing about containment and start arguing about evacuation. Staff members quietly leave their desks, unsure whether to stay in the building or get as far away as possible. Security teams fortify entrances even though no one can explain how that would help. Several floors above, Homelander watches the live feed from a wall of screens. He studies Kratos' face closely, looking for signs of rage or chaos. He finds none. The calm is what unsettles him. Across town, Billy Butcher watches the same footage with growing certainty. Huey stands beside him, eyes wide. "He's really going there," Huey says. Butcher nods slowly. He saw something he didn't like, and now he's going to the source. On the street, Vought deploys more Supes to block Kratos' path in a desperate attempt to slow him down. This time they don't charge recklessly. They try to reason with him, shouting over the noise of helicopters and sirens. "Stop right there," one of them yells. "We can talk this out." Kratos does not respond. He does not even slow. When they step into his path physically, he moves through them with brutal efficiency that looks almost effortless. One is lifted by the collar and thrown into a traffic light hard enough to bend the pole. Another tries to grab him from behind and is flipped over Kratos' shoulder into the street with a force that cracks pavement. Civilians run in every direction, screaming and filming at the same time. Kratos never breaks stride. Inside Vought Tower, executives watch this unfold with growing dread. They are used to Supes being the strongest presence in any situation. Watching them treated like obstacles instead of threats shatters something foundational in their understanding of power. Homelander notices the same thing and feels something unfamiliar rising in his chest. It is not fear yet, but recognition. This man is not fighting for attention. He is advancing with judgment already decided. Across town, Butcher leans forward as Kratos passes a massive Vought billboard showing smiling Supes posing like gods. Kratos glances at it briefly without stopping. The billboard trembles slightly as he walks past, as if the air itself reacted to his presence. Butcher mutters quietly, he hates what this place stands for. The realization spreads through the city as people begin whispering the same thought. This stranger is not random. He is not chaotic. He is walking directly toward the heart of Vought like a storm with a target. Police and military units attempt to set up barricades near Vought Tower, but the effort looks desperate rather than strategic. No one believes it will stop him. They are doing it because they do not know what else to do. Inside the tower, staff members start evacuating through side exits, glancing nervously at windows as if expecting to see him appear at any moment. Homelander stands still, eyes fixed on the screen, understanding something before anyone else says it out loud. This man is coming for them, and nothing they send in his way changes his pace. As Kratos moves deeper into Manhattan, the response from Vought International shifts from confident resistance to desperate stalling. Barricades go up across entire avenues, not because anyone believes they will hold, but because every extra minute feels valuable to executives scrambling to decide what to do next. Armored vehicles form walls across intersections, and Supes are ordered to slow him down without engaging directly. The instructions are vague because no one knows what slowing him down looks like against someone who has not paused once since entering the city. Several floors above, Homelander watches the defensive pattern form on the screens. He sees the map light up with blocked streets and realizes something immediately. This is not strategy. This is fear trying to buy time. Across town, Billy Butcher watches the same street grid form and lets out a slow breath. Huey looks confused at the sight of military trucks lining entire roads. "They think traffic will stop him," Huey asks. Butcher shakes his head. "They're not trying to stop him. They're trying to figure out what he wants before he gets there." Kratos reaches the first barricade without changing pace. Soldiers shout commands and aim rifles while Supes hover above, unsure whether to attack or negotiate. The air is tense with the expectation of another violent clash. Kratos walks directly into the armored vehicles. The first truck slides backward across the asphalt as if pushed by a machine instead of a man. The second tilts slightly as he forces his way between them, metal screeching loudly as the vehicles are shoved aside. No one fires. The soldiers lower their weapons instinctively, recognizing that this is not a situation they are trained for. A Supe tries to talk to him, voice shaking despite the attempt at authority. "We don't want to fight, just tell us what you want." Kratos does not look at him. He keeps walking. Inside Vought Tower, executives watch this in stunned silence. They begin to understand that he is not responding because he does not need to. Whatever he wants is already decided in his mind. Homelander leans closer to the screen, noticing the way Kratos scans the buildings as he walks, eyes moving over Vought logos, advertisements, and facilities with growing intensity. Across town, Butcher watches the footage and mutters quietly, "He's not here for the Supes." As Kratos passes another Vought medical center, he slows for the first time. Through the glass, he sees children sitting in waiting rooms while handlers speak to parents with reassuring smiles. The sight triggers something old and deep inside him, a memory of gods using mortals for their own games. His grip tightens around the Leviathan axe slightly. The guards at the entrance tense, unsure whether to prepare for a fight. Kratos looks at the building for several long seconds before turning his gaze back toward the skyline where Vought Tower stands. The decision becomes heavier. Inside the tower, executives notice the pause and realize something terrifying. He is connecting the dots. They are no longer dealing with a violent intruder. They are dealing with someone who understands exactly what Vought is. Homelander stands up slowly from his chair, recognizing that the delay tactics are meaningless now. The stranger is no longer just walking toward them. He is judging them as he goes. Across the city, Butcher exhales slowly as Kratos resumes walking. "He's figured them out," he says quietly. The barricades ahead suddenly feel pointless, because everyone watching understands that nothing they put in front of him changes the outcome. It only postpones the moment he reaches the door. As Kratos closes the final miles toward Vought Tower, Federal Command authorizes direct military intervention. Helicopters descend lower over the streets, armored convoys reposition, and soldiers receive orders that sound confident but feel hollow. The objective is stated clearly over comms: contain the hostile and prevent him from reaching the corporate center of the city. Inside Vought International, executives cling to the idea that overwhelming force will change the outcome. They watch screens filled with soldiers forming lines across major avenues, believing numbers and weapons must eventually matter. Several floors above, Homelander watches with a distant expression. He understands before anyone says it that this is not going to look like a battle. This is going to look like delay. Across town, Billy Butcher sees the troop movements on live news and shakes his head slowly. Huey stands beside him, visibly tense. "They're bringing in the army," Huey says. Butcher exhales. "They still think this is something you fight." Kratos turns onto a wide avenue and sees a full military blockade stretching across the street. Armored trucks, mounted guns, and rows of soldiers form a wall of metal and uniforms. Helicopters hover above, spotlights cutting through the air as commands echo across loudspeakers. He does not stop walking. A warning is shouted for him to halt. When he does not respond, gunfire erupts in controlled bursts. Bullets strike his chest, shoulders, and legs, falling to the ground harmlessly as he keeps advancing. The soldiers hesitate as they realize the gunfire is doing nothing. A rocket launcher fires next, the explosion erupting in front of Kratos in a cloud of smoke and flame. The street shakes from the blast, and debris scatters across the pavement. For a brief second, the smoke hides him from view. Then he walks out of it. He does not look injured. He does not look angry. He looks mildly inconvenienced. Kratos raises one hand and grabs the front of an armored vehicle as he passes. With a simple motion, he flips it onto its side like discarded scrap. Soldiers scramble backward, tripping over each other as the formation breaks apart. Helicopters dip lower, trying to track him from above. Kratos looks up once, grabs a chunk of broken asphalt from the street, and hurls it skyward. The stone slams into the side of one helicopter, sending it spinning away, trailing smoke. Inside Vought Tower, executives watch the feed with growing horror. This is not a fight. This is a demonstration of how irrelevant their defenses are. Homelander leans forward slightly, studying the calm on Kratos' face as chaos unfolds around him. He recognizes something unsettling in that expression. This man is not angry at the soldiers. He is irritated by the delay. Across town, Butcher watches the same footage and mutters quietly, "They're just in his way." Kratos moves through the broken blockade without chasing anyone. He does not attack soldiers who retreat. He does not pursue helicopters pulling back. He simply continues forward, stepping over wreckage and debris as if the street is clearing itself for him. The military units stop trying to reform their lines. The realization spreads quickly that standing in front of him only results in being moved aside. Inside Vought Tower, executives finally understand something they avoided admitting. The military is not protecting them. It is proving how unstoppable this man is to everyone watching. Homelander stands up slowly, eyes fixed on the screen as Kratos resumes his steady march. Because now there is nothing left between him and Vought except open streets. And everyone watching understands that the next time he stops walking, it will be at their door. Inside Vought International, the final military feeds go quiet as helicopters pull back, and armored units retreat from streets they no longer control. The building falls into a tense silence where no one speaks unless necessary. Everyone is aware that the stranger is now only blocks away. Several floors above, Homelander stands in front of a wall of screens showing Kratos walking through debris and abandoned vehicles without slowing. Homelander's expression is not anger, it is calculation. He realizes something before anyone else in the room says it. If this man reaches Vought Tower, it will not be a conversation. Homelander turns away from the screens without announcing his decision. Staff members in the hallway watch him pass, sensing that something final is about to happen. He does not take an elevator. He launches through the glass windows and into the sky, flying directly toward the approaching figure. Across town, Billy Butcher watches the live news feed as the camera shifts upward to follow Homelander streaking across the skyline. "He's going to meet him," Huey says quietly. Butcher nods. He wants control of where this happens. In the middle of a wide avenue littered with wrecked vehicles, Kratos continues walking when a gust of wind sweeps dust and debris outward. Homelander lands in front of him with enough force to crack the asphalt beneath his boots. Civilians watching from windows and behind barricades hold their breath. Cameras zoom in instantly. Homelander stands tall, trying to reassert the dominance that defines him. "You're causing a lot of trouble in my city," he says evenly. "You should stop now." Kratos stops for the first time since entering Manhattan and looks at him. His eyes move over Homelander slowly, assessing him the way he assessed gods long ago. There is no recognition of authority in that look. Only judgment. Homelander feels it immediately, like he is being measured instead of confronted. He straightens his posture slightly, refusing to show discomfort. "I don't know who you are, but you're not walking into Vought." Kratos remains silent. The quiet stretches long enough to become uncomfortable. Homelander expects a threat, a challenge, something he can respond to. None comes. Instead, Kratos takes a step forward. Homelander reacts instantly, flying forward and grabbing Kratos by the chest, lifting him off the ground and driving him backward into the side of a building. The impact shatters windows and sends debris raining down onto the street. Kratos hits the wall and then calmly grabs Homelander's wrist. The movement is so simple it almost looks slow. Homelander's momentum stops completely. His eyes widen slightly as he realizes he cannot push forward. Kratos squeezes, and the bones in Homelander's wrist creak audibly. With one motion, Kratos slams Homelander down into the street hard enough to crater the asphalt. The ground caves inward as dust and debris explode outward in a shockwave. Civilians scream and scatter as cameras struggle to keep focus. Homelander rises from the crater instantly, anger flashing across his face. He fires heat vision directly into Kratos' chest. The beam burns bright enough to melt metal around them. When the light fades, Kratos is still standing, skin unmarked. He looks at Homelander again, expression unchanged. Homelander charges a second time with full force, trying to tackle him to the ground. Kratos steps aside and grabs him mid-motion, flipping him through the air and slamming him into the pavement again with brutal precision. This time, Homelander stays down for a second longer. Across town, Butcher watches the feed in stunned silence. "He's treating him like a child," he mutters. On the street, Homelander pushes himself up, breathing heavier now. For the first time in his life, he understands that this is not a rival. This is something far beyond his scale. Kratos does not pursue him. He stands still, watching. The message is clear without words. "You are not worth the delay." Homelander stares at him for a long moment, then slowly lifts off the ground. He does not attack again. He does not threaten. He backs away through the air, eyes locked on Kratos as if trying to understand what he just faced. Kratos turns his head back toward Vought Tower and resumes walking. And for the first time since this began, Homelander does not try to stop him. Inside Vought International, every screen shows the same image from different angles as Homelander slowly rises into the air after being slammed into the street for the second time. Analysts, executives, and security personnel stand frozen, staring at the footage without speaking. No one has ever seen Homelander hesitate in a confrontation, let alone retreat from one. The silence in the room feels heavier than panic. It feels like understanding. They just watched the strongest asset Vought ever created get treated like an inconvenience. Homelander hovers in the air for several seconds, eyes locked on Kratos below. He is not angry. He is trying to process what just happened. The man in the street is not posturing, not chasing, not even acknowledging him anymore. Kratos has already decided the encounter is over. That decision is what breaks something fundamental inside Homelander. Across the city, Billy Butcher watches the live feed with Huey and MM. None of them speak for a long time as Homelander drifts backward through the air instead of attacking again. "He's backing off," Huey says quietly. Butcher nods slowly. He knows. On the street, civilians peek out from behind cars and storefronts as Kratos resumes walking toward Vought Tower. The tension in the air changes immediately. The crowd no longer expects a fight. They realize they just witnessed something else entirely. They saw Homelander choose not to continue. Kratos moves forward with the same heavy, deliberate pace as before, stepping over cracked asphalt and shattered glass without looking back. The camera crews follow him at a distance, their voices trembling as they describe what just happened without having language that fits it. Inside Vought Tower, executives start speaking again, but the tone has changed completely. They are no longer asking how to stop him. They are asking what he will do when he arrives. Security teams are ordered to fall back inside the building. No one is told to engage. No one is told to resist. The orders are vague because everyone understands that resistance is pointless. Homelander lands silently on a rooftop a block away from Vought Tower and watches Kratos approach. His face is unreadable, but the usual arrogance is gone. He is witnessing something he cannot categorize as threat or rival. He is watching an executioner walk toward his house. Across town, Butcher exhales slowly. Vought just lost control of their own god, he says. In the streets, people stop running. They begin watching instead. Phones rise into the air as civilians record the approach. The fear shifts into a strange, quiet anticipation because everyone can feel that the real event has not happened yet. Kratos finally reaches the wide plaza in front of Vought Tower. The massive glass building rises above him like a monument to everything this world worships. He stops at the edge of the plaza and looks up at it for a long moment. His expression hardens slightly. Inside the tower, executives stare at him through reinforced glass windows, realizing they are looking at someone who has already judged them before stepping through the door. Homelander watches from above, unmoving, as if he knows this moment does not belong to him anymore. Kratos takes a single step forward into the plaza. And inside Vought Tower, people begin backing away from windows without being told to. The plaza in front of Vought International is eerily quiet when Kratos steps onto the polished stone. Sirens echo faintly from distant streets, but here, the air feels heavy and still, like the world itself is holding its breath. Dozens of cameras from news crews and civilians point toward him, capturing every step as he approaches the towering glass entrance. Inside the lobby, security teams stand in rigid lines with weapons drawn, their orders unclear but their fear obvious. No one expects to stop him. They are standing there because leaving their posts feels worse than staying. Kratos does not slow as he reaches the massive glass doors. He does not test them. He does not look for a way in. He walks straight through. The reinforced glass explodes inward around him as if it were thin ice, scattering across marble floors in a storm of shards. Guards flinch backward, some raising weapons instinctively, others lowering them because they understand how meaningless it is. Kratos steps into the lobby and looks around slowly. The Vought logo stretches across the wall above the reception desk like a declaration of authority. Screens display smiling Supes and corporate slogans about safety and hope. Employees stand frozen behind counters, unsure whether to run or speak. Kratos studies the room the way he once studied temples built by gods who thought themselves untouchable. Several security Supes rush forward from the side corridors, trying to intercept him before he moves deeper into the building. They shout commands and threats, trying to create the illusion of control in a situation that has none. Kratos moves without hesitation. The first Supe is lifted off the ground by the throat and thrown across the lobby into a marble pillar that cracks from the impact. The second charges from behind, only to be caught mid-motion and slammed face-first into the floor hard enough to crater the tile beneath him. The third tries to attack from a distance with a shockwave of force. Kratos steps forward through it, unaffected, and strikes him once with the butt of the Leviathan axe. The Supe drops instantly, unconscious before he hits the ground. Employees scream and scatter into offices and stairwells as Kratos continues forward. He does not chase anyone. He does not look at them. His eyes are fixed on the elevator bank ahead. Several floors above, executives watch the lobby feed in horror as their last line of defense collapses in seconds. Someone whispers, "He's inside." On a rooftop across the plaza, Homelander watches through a window, unmoving. He understands now that this moment is no longer about stopping Kratos. It is about witnessing what happens when someone like him reaches the core of Vought. Across town, Billy Butcher watches the broadcast with a quiet intensity. Huey stands beside him, unable to look away. "He's going up," Huey says. Butcher nods, to the people who made this mess. Inside the lobby, Kratos reaches the elevators and presses the call button with calm precision. The act is almost absurdly normal compared to everything that just happened. He waits, staring at his reflection in the polished metal doors. When the elevator arrives, he steps inside without looking back. Security cameras inside the lift show him standing still as the doors close, and the numbers begin climbing toward the executive floors. Inside the control room, Vought executives realize something with growing dread. He is not wandering. He knows exactly where to go, and he is taking the most direct path possible to reach them. The elevator doors slide open onto the executive floor of Vought International, and for a moment, the hallway is completely silent. Assistants, lawyers, and board members stand frozen outside glass-walled conference rooms, staring at the towering figure stepping out of the lift with an axe resting calmly in his hand. No one runs. They are too stunned to move. Kratos walks forward slowly, boots echoing across polished floors that were designed to project power and confidence. The Vought logo appears again at the far end of the corridor, etched into glass like a symbol of control over this world. He looks at it briefly before turning his gaze toward the largest conference room where executives are gathered behind a transparent wall. Inside that room, panic finally erupts. People scramble away from the glass, shouting to lock doors, call security, call anyone who can help. Phones are dropped. Chairs fall over. The illusion of corporate authority collapses into raw fear in seconds. Kratos reaches the glass wall and stops. He looks through it at the people inside, studying their faces the way he once studied the gods of Olympus before deciding they deserved to die. There is no hatred in his expression, only certainty. He pushes one hand forward. The reinforced glass shatters inward in a violent burst, sending fragments flying across the conference table. Executives scream and fall backward as Kratos steps through the opening without hurry. One man tries to speak, voice shaking as he raises both hands. "We can talk." Kratos grabs him by the front of his suit and lifts him off the ground effortlessly. The man's feet dangle as he tries to plead, but the words dissolve into panic when he looks into Kratos' eyes. Kratos slams him onto the table with enough force to split the wood in half. The room falls silent, except for the sound of heavy breathing. Across the city, Billy Butcher watches the live feed with Huey and MM. None of them speak as they see executives cowering in a room they once ruled with confidence. "He's not here to fight," Butcher says quietly. "He's here to end something." Back inside the conference room, another executive tries to slip past the chaos and run for the door. Kratos moves faster than anyone expects, catching him by the collar and hurling him into a wall so hard that the drywall caves inward. Papers, tablets, and shattered glass cover the floor as the remaining executives back themselves into a corner, realizing that no negotiation is possible. Kratos looks around the room slowly, eyes moving over framed awards, corporate slogans, and smiling photos of Supes shaking hands with politicians. His expression darkens slightly as he takes in the evidence of a system built on control and exploitation. He steps toward the center of the room and brings the butt of the Leviathan axe down onto the conference table. The impact cracks the floor beneath it. Several floors below, employees feel the vibration through the building and look up in confusion. On a rooftop outside, Homelander watches through a window, silent and unmoving. He understands now that this is not an attack on Vaught's assets. This is an execution of its authority. Inside the room, Kratos turns toward the Vought logo on the wall and rips it free with one hand, tearing metal and glass apart like paper. The symbol crashes onto the floor in twisted fragments. The executives watch in horror as the thing they built to represent power is reduced to debris in seconds. Kratos drops the ruined emblem at their feet. The message is clear without words. This ends here. The executive floor of Vought International is no longer a place of authority. It looks like the aftermath of a god walking through a temple and deciding it no longer deserves to stand. Glass carpets the floor, the conference table is split down the middle, and the twisted Vought emblem lies discarded like scrap metal at Kratos' feet. The surviving executives press themselves against the far wall, too terrified to speak, watching Kratos with the realization that their titles, wealth, and influence mean nothing in this room. Outside the shattered wall of windows, a gust of wind announces the arrival of Homelander before anyone sees him. He floats into the opening slowly, stepping into the destroyed conference room with unusual caution. For the first time since this began, Homelander does not speak first. He looks around at the damage, then at Kratos, then at the executives trembling behind him. Something shifts in his expression as he understands what this scene represents. This is not chaos. This is judgment already passed. Homelander finally speaks, voice lower than usual. "You've made your point." Kratos turns his head slightly toward him. The look in his eyes is not anger. It is evaluation, the same look he gave gods before deciding whether they deserve to live. Homelander feels it immediately. He is not being confronted as an equal. He is being weighed. Homelander straightens his posture, trying to recover his presence. "You don't belong here," he says, more to himself than to Kratos. Kratos steps forward once. The floor beneath his boots cracks audibly. Homelander reacts instinctively and launches forward with full force, tackling Kratos through the glass wall and out into open air. The impact sends both of them crashing into the side of the building, shattering windows across multiple floors as they fall toward the street below. They hit the pavement hard enough to split the road in half. Dust and debris explode outward as civilians scream and run. Homelander rises instantly, eyes burning with frustration, and unleashes his full heat vision into Kratos' face at point-blank range. The beam burns so bright that nearby cars melt from the reflected heat. When the light fades, Kratos stands there, completely unharmed. Homelander's expression shifts from anger to disbelief. Kratos moves. He grabs Homelander by the head with one hand and slams him into the street so violently that the crater deepens several feet. Before Homelander can react, Kratos lifts him again and throws him across the avenue into a parked bus, folding it around his body like paper. Homelander bursts out of the wreckage, furious now, flying back at Kratos with everything he has. He throws punches strong enough to level buildings. Kratos blocks one casually with his forearm and responds with a single backhand strike. The hit sends Homelander flying through 3 buildings in a row before crashing into the fourth. Across the city, Billy Butcher watches the live feed in stunned silence. Huey's mouth hangs open. "He's not even trying," Butcher whispers. Homelander rises from the rubble again, breathing hard now, pride and disbelief colliding in his mind. He has never met anything that does not break under his strength. Kratos walks toward him slowly. Not running, not shouting. Walking. Homelander fires heat vision again, screaming in frustration as the beam washes over Kratos without effect. Kratos closes the distance, grabs Homelander by the throat, and lifts him off the ground like a child. Their eyes meet. In that moment, Homelander understands something with terrifying clarity. This man has killed gods, and he is looking at Homelander like he is nothing more than another one. Kratos squeezes slightly, and Homelander feels pain in a way he has never experienced before, not from injury but from the realization of scale. He is not the apex here. He is insignificant. Kratos throws him aside without finishing him, sending him skidding across the broken street. The message is unmistakable. You are not worth the effort. Homelander lies in the rubble, staring up at the sky, understanding for the first time in his life that he is not the most powerful being in the room, or even close. And Kratos turns away from him, already finished with the encounter. Smoke drifts through the avenue outside Vought International as sirens echo in the distance without urgency. Cars burn where they were thrown aside. Glass litters the street like frost, and civilians watch from behind barricades and windows in stunned silence. The live broadcasts continue, but the commentators have stopped trying to narrate what is happening because the footage speaks for itself. In the middle of the ruined street stands Kratos, breathing steady, eyes lifted toward Vought Tower as if measuring whether anything inside still deserves his attention. Nearby, Homelander slowly pushes himself up from the rubble of a collapsed storefront. He does not charge again. He does not speak. He watches Kratos with an expression that no one in this city has ever seen on his face before. Understanding. Kratos looks at him once more, not with anger, not with hatred, but with finality. The message requires no words. This encounter is over because Homelander is no longer relevant to what Kratos came here to judge. Kratos turns his back on him and walks toward the tower entrance again, stepping over broken asphalt and twisted metal without looking behind him. Inside Vought Tower, executives, staff, and security watch from shattered windows and security feeds, as the man who walked through their defenses returns calmly to the building they believed was untouchable. The damage to their authority is already complete before he even reaches the door. Across town, Billy Butcher lowers the volume on the television and stares at the screen without speaking. Huey stands beside him, unsure how to process what they just witnessed. "He didn't come here to win," Butcher says quietly. "He came here to judge." Back at the tower, Kratos steps through the ruined entrance once more. No one tries to stop him. Security teams stand aside instinctively, lowering weapons without being told. The building feels less like a corporate headquarters and more like a monument that has already fallen, just waiting for someone to acknowledge it. Kratos walks through the lobby, past shattered glass and unconscious Supes, and stops in the center of the floor. He looks around one last time at the screens showing smiling heroes, the logos promising safety, the architecture designed to project control. Then he turns and walks back out. There is nothing left here that requires his attention. Outside, Homelander watches him leave the building without interference. The strongest Supe in the world stands still as Kratos walks past him, understanding that nothing he does can change what just happened. Civilians lining the streets watch in silence as Kratos walks away from Vought Tower with the same calm pace he had when he arrived. No one cheers. No one approaches. They simply watch a myth leave their world. Across Manhattan, conversations begin immediately. People talk about Supes differently. They talk about Vought differently. The illusion that power means control has been shattered in a single afternoon. Kratos reaches the edge of the city and keeps walking without looking back. Behind him, Vought Tower still stands, but it no longer feels like the center of the world. Because everyone saw what happens when something far older and far stronger walks through it without effort. And no one in this city will ever see Supes the same way again.